I'm responsible for other people and I'm responsible for other people's families. And so when you become a practice owner, you've got to remember that this is not about you. This is about getting our patients better in our communities, and this is about taking care of our staff. And it's a huge responsibility.
Dr. Duncan says, if you want to know about business, health, and places to go, welcome to the show. Yeah, welcome to the show. If you know that you want to grow your business, your practice, and portfolio, welcome to the show.
Hello, and welcome to $1 Million Chiro, the podcast for chiropractic practice owners. I'm your host, Dr. Mary Frances Duncan, founder and CEO of Simply Southern Chiropractic Center in South Carolina. I'm a chiropractor by trade in an entrepreneur's body. I'm excited to guide you through this journey at the crossroads of chiropractic care and the art of successful practice management. If you haven't already, check out my website, milliondollarchiro.co, where you can access all of our previous podcasts, online courses, and gain more insight on one-on-one coaching with me. And don't forget to stay connected by following us on all social media platforms at $1 Million Chiro. You can listen to $1 Million Chiro, the podcast, on all popular streaming platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Ultimately, if you enjoy what you're hearing, please hit that subscribe button and leave us a glowing 5-star review. Reviews allow us to hear from our listeners and what interests you. Now, let's get to the backbone of it all.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 15 on our podcast. Today's podcast episode is Carrying the Weight of Ownership. And I'm here with my executive assistant, Kelsey, and she's going to ask me some questions today about practice ownership.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Duncan, for having me back. I love helping out with this podcast, so I'm happy to be back. So today we're going to be talking about ownership, and Dr. Duncan knows plenty about ownership and carrying the weight of ownership on her shoulders. So I'm really excited to ask her some questions today about all the value in having and owning a business. So let's go ahead and hop right on into it. So owning a chiropractic clinic comes with its own unique set of challenges and responsibilities. Could you start with describing what carrying the weight of your clinic means to you?
So yes, being a business owner comes with a lot of responsibilities. So I'm responsible for the livelihood of the employees that work for me. So I'm responsible for making sure that they get the hour, if they're hourly employee, getting the hours that they need to, get enough on their paycheck for their families to put food on the table. I'm responsible for taking care of their needs and making sure that they are working enough hours and then not overdoing it. And so I'm responsible for other people and I'm responsible for other people's families. And so when you become a practice owner, you've got to remember that this is not about you. This is about getting our patients better in our communities, and it's about taking care of our staff. And it's a huge responsibility because if we aren't as busy in the clinic or if something doesn't go right, the owner, you're the last person to get paid always. And you've got to pay your staff, you've got to pay your W-2 employees. And you are the one as the owner who's not going to get paid in those times. And just knowing that up front before you start a practice, or if you are a practice owner before you start to grow, this is a huge responsibility and it'll keep you up at night.
Absolutely. So let's go ahead and talk about that a little bit. So how do you manage the balance between providing care and managing the business side of the clinic?
So it's hard. The way I do it is when I'm with my patients, I have to be 100%. You don't get an option as a clinician to not be 100% or to come to work and you're 80%. Like that just doesn't exist. If you're a good clinician, you've got to be on all the time, period. And so when I walk into the treatment room with patients, I don't check my phone. I don't check my phone for hours. And sometimes my husband gets frustrated with me because in his line of work, he is able to use his phone. But in this setting, in the chiropractic office, and I would say in other medical offices,
Absolutely.
we can't be on our phones. And so putting that away really helps. And when I walk into the treatment room, it is all about the patient and all about what they need so I can be on 100%. And so we're constantly, thinking about, does this patient need therapy? Do we need to do imaging? How are they doing? We're doing our notes. And so you've got to be on 100%. And it is hard as the practice owner because you've got to make sure that your practice is running. Like, for example, here's an example today. We've got reminder texts that go out to our patients, and we had a glitch and our patients didn't get reminder texts for tomorrow. Well, if I'm treating patients, unless it's an absolute emergency or the building is on fire, as a business owner, you just have to deal with those things and worry about those things later, and totally tell yourself that I'm going to focus on the patient while I'm in the room. And it is hard, but you want to do right by your patients, and you want to make sure ultimately that they're getting better, and you've got to push some of this stuff to the side. And so delegating helps a lot with this. Delegating tasks to other staff members really helps. I have an assistant, which helps to an extent. And so doing things to get some of these administrative tasks off your plate can really, really help you focus in the treatment room. But if you're a smaller clinic or you're just starting out, you don't have the luxury of having other employees or being able to delegate, and you just have to mentally turn it off. And so just know, and I tell my vendors, if you're emailing me on a treatment day, you're not going to get a response from me. And when I was treating every day, I would just tell people, I'll respond to you after business hours, or I'll respond to you on the weekend. But it's very hard for me to respond during the week because I am back to back with patients. And same thing with returning phone calls. And I think if you just set expectations and tell your vendors this or tell your loved ones this up front, it really helps them understand that you've got to focus on your patients.
Absolutely. And talking through the patient side of things, let's talk now about the business side of things. How do you carry that? What does your mindset look like when you're outside of the treatment room? Just like, how does your mindset shift from being with patients versus handling the actual business side of running the clinic?
Gotcha. So I think that's really going to depend on what you're good at and what you enjoy. So
Right.
I really like running the business. I love the business management aspect. I love the administrative side of it. And so I feel like it's very easy for me to transition. I do need to have some closure. I need to make sure my notes are done. I need to make sure that after I finish treating patients that I have ordered any imaging that they need, that I have followed up with them in any way that I need to. But I'm able to sort of wrap that up and then go right back to the business side of things. But I, at this point, treat 1.5 days a week, so I'm able to do that. When I was in the treatment room all the time, it is a lot harder. I would treat patients all during business hours, and then I would go home and I would work on the administrative side of things from I remember 9 p.m. till midnight. And so I would do that every night. And that was sort of hard because I was tired. But there's certain things you just have to get done. But for me, it's not hard. It's harder for me to go from doing administrative tasks into a clinical mindset. I really have to prepare myself and make sure I'm ready for my patients. Takes a lot more energy for me than going the opposite direction from patient care back to the administrative side. And I think that's going to depend on the practice owner's interest level in these things and what their strengths are. Absolutely.
So do you ever have an instance where these two things conflict? I know that you try your best to keep them separate, but what happens when they conflict?
Yeah, so yes, this has happened. Like in January this year, I was treating patients and the basement in our Greer location was flooding. And so as a business owner and, everyone's employer, that is my responsibility. And that is definitely a fire that has to be put out. And we also had patients coming in the door at the same time. And you just do the best that you can. And you just, as a practice owner, you just think to yourself, what do I have to do? I go into like crisis mode,
Sure.
which with my personality and like we talk about the Colby and print test a lot with my print, I do very well in a crisis, and my mind, I just start going on autopilot, and I'm able to figure out, okay, yes, I have patients, but we have to stop this flooding in our office or we're not going to have patients. And so you just have to do the best thing in the moment, but keep moving. We've got to be making decisions. They say a business owner makes, 10,000 decisions a day, which is, it feels like it sometimes. I don't know if that number's accurate or not, but there's some decisions that are a lot heavier and require a lot more action. And then there's a lot of decisions that are small, like, what earrings am I going to wear to go with this outfit? I mean, that's a very easy decision, hopefully. And so you just have to take those big decisions, and you have to prioritize, like, is this making this decision or dealing with this problem more important than treating the patient? And most of the time the answer is going to be no, but there are instances where, yes, as a business owner, we've got to take care of imminent problems.
Absolutely. So now let's kind of talk and transition into more of like the personal side of it for you. I know that being a business owner, I see it every day working with Dr. Duncan. It's personal sacrifice. It's emotional investment into just wanting to make sure that everything goes correctly and smoothly. So talk to us about the personal sacrifices and the emotional investment that you've had to sacrifice and make for this business.
For sure. So first of all, personal sacrifices, I mean, let's talk about finances. And so, when I started this practice, put up I put everything I had on the line to open up this practice and, to treat patients and to be successful. And that's ultimately, so whenever we're going to talk about this too, like stress management. Whenever I get stressed as a practice owner, and I think this is great for our listeners to hear, I have to tell myself and remember that I chose this profession. I wanted to be a business owner. I made this decision to own a practice. And these are some of the things that come with it. And so I have to tell myself sometimes, stop throwing yourself, a pity party, get up and get moving. You picked this. You made this decision. And so, part of being a business owner, it is stressful, but there's financial sacrifices that I've made. Like I said, there's been times where I don't get paid at all, and the rest of you guys do get paid, and we pay our staff well, and that's a sacrifice. When you're a business owner, I'll tell you this, guys, if you want a successful practice, and I'm not saying that it's like this all the time, but when you start your practice in those first 5 to 10 years, you will be a slave to your business, a slave, and you will be there all the time. Hopefully you'll be obsessed with your business. If you're not obsessed with it, I don't think people are successful that don't become obsessed with it at some point. And the longer you're open, that gets a lot better, and you have a lot more time that you can spend with family and friends. But this is like a child. You've got to nurture it and grow it. And there isn't a lot of work-life balance in the very beginning. And to be quite honest, if you do have a lot of work-life balance, in my opinion, in the beginning, you're not as successful as you could be. And does that mean sacrificing time with your spouse or your children? Absolutely it does, because you're going to give your family a better life if you put more work and time into your business, especially when you're getting it off the ground. So yeah, there are financial sacrifices. There are sacrifices that we make, or I've made as business owner with my family. It is stressful. I'm sure it's taken a lot of years off of my life, and I try to learn to deal with stress and work through stressful situations. But yeah, it takes a lot of sacrifice, but no risk, no reward. I can't, looking back, I'm so proud of what I've built, and I've been able to help, members in our community with chiropractic care, and just our staff that have come through here. Good job. They have good jobs. They've got good training for our assistants that go on to nursing school, chiropractic school, medical school. We've just done a lot for our community, and we've done a lot for our staff here at Simply Southern Chiropractic Center. And I have to remember those things when it becomes really stressful, because I'll tell you, listeners, your staff will never understand. It doesn't matter how much, and don't even waste your time talking to your staff about, how much sacrifice you take, or, how stressful things are, because they'll never understand. And it's not because they might not care. They can't understand. They aren't there. They are, they're W-2 employees for a reason. Like a certain type of person, it takes a certain type of person to be a successful entrepreneur, and that those people are very few in our world. And so if you are an entrepreneur, just realize, like, your staff aren't going to understand what you're going through, and they're not going to understand how hard it is. And so just don't, that's another energy waster.
Yeah.
I just don't even go there. Because they're not going to understand, and you're not going to always get appreciation either from staff. And just sort of know that from the very beginning. It's not that staff, I don't think, are appreciative. They just don't understand what all they're getting, and they're not grateful for their situation until they leave, and then they go somewhere else and they realize, oh my goodness, this was a really good work environment. This is a really good, situation that I had, but it's sort of too late at that point.
Right. And I feel like talking about like the caringness of staff and where that comes in, like you mentioned, they don't see it all, and even all the little tiny in between steps, and they haven't been along that whole journey with you, and in your brain even. So that's been a very interesting aspect to see on my end of things as your executive assistant, because I just get to see, I don't see everything, but I still get a good snippet of a lot of stuff the staff doesn't even see. So it's been really rewarding to see that aspect of the business. So let's talk about stress. I mean, we talked about, the emotional investment that you put into all of this, the sacrifices you've made. What happens in those situations where you're just really stressed out and it all just comes crumbling down? What do you do? How do you manage that as a business owner?
Yeah, so I think people manage and deal with stress in different ways.
Sure.
But the biggest, I think, take home, if I can give any advice, is you've got to learn to deal with stress. And I think one of the biggest, it is one of the biggest issues that I deal with staff over the years, especially younger staff members in their young 20s and 20s. They think they deal with stress and anxiety. And this was a hot topic, like a hot word a few years ago. People talk about their mental health a lot, which
right.
Mental health is a thing. I get it. And we need to take care of our mental health. But we would have staff members, they lived at home with their parents. They came here, they worked an hourly job, and they came in, punched the clock, punched out, and didn't really have any responsibilities outside of work. And they would, need to take like mental health days, or, they had so much stress and anxiety. We've had girls that have had panic attacks in the office.
Wow.
We've had trouble breathing and different things. And so one of the things that I like to talk about and mentor our staff with is stress and anxiety. You can't run from it. So if you quit your job, your stress and anxiety will follow you.
Shift, yeah.
You can't run from these things. And so in my own life, I have to remind myself, like, stress and anxiety is a part of life. And we've got to realize we've got to come up with ways to deal with stress and anxiety, which in turn will help our mental health. And so for me, I don't want to, and this is just my personal decision, and anyone else who does these things, that's totally fine. It's just, I don't want to, but I don't want to take any prescription medication for anxiety, depression, anything of that nature. I know as a chiropractor, I've learned what side effects are. I know how it affects your brain chemistry. I know how it can, you can have withdrawal issues and all. And I'm not going there. I don't want to do it. And so I've tried to figure out ways naturally to deal with stress because, being a business owner, I'm always got stress, and
Right.
you have to, and I think, I want to say this too, that I try when I'm with our patients and when I'm with most of our team, if you're a leader, these people around you are going to feed off of you. So you have to think of yourself when you're in the clinic. It's always a production. Like, you've got to put on a happy face, even if you aren't happy. Like, you've got to fake it till you make it, because if you don't feel good and you go around saying this and and you're mopey and we aren't with it, it affects the other people around you. So this is one of my favorite sayings that I say a lot to our team. The decisions that you make, they affect other people. And so we've got to realize, watch our body language. And if I'm stressed, I can't be stressed in the treatment room, because my patient that's paying to get better, they want to feel good when they leave. And part of feeling good is physically feeling better, but then emotionally, they need to feel better as well too. And if I put my stress and my problems on other people, it's going to affect them to where they don't want to be around me, or I'm not an effective leader. And so I just have to sort of realize that when I am stressed in the office. And also, like, my problems aren't my staff's problems. So, like, if something's going on an administrative side, like, say, we had a piece of equipment break, or someone missed a Zoom call with me or something, and I'm frustrated, like, that's not my staff's problem. That's not my front desk problem. That's not the other doctors in my clinic. That's not their issue. And so I can't be upset with them for something that happened to me. So taking personal responsibility for my stress and how I feel, I think, is part of being a leader, and not putting that on someone else. But to go back and answer your question about what are the things that I do to help with stress management. So at least once a week, I do massage. And so emotional and mental stress can become physical stress. So massage helps with that. I do try to do some sort of exercise. I try to either lift weights. That's what I really push for, or not, just at least go for a walk. I do that several times a week. That helps with stress. I do other things. Yoga helps with stress with me. Talking to my husband for certain things, that sort of helps. Other things that I do, I take a bunch of vitamins and supplements that help with stress, and those sort of change as the seasons change. And then, to the best of my ability, I do try to make sure I'm getting nutrition, so drinking enough water, eating as much protein as I can. And so different things like that help me manage my stress level. And I think that could be different for everyone.
Sure.
But I know if I'm doing all these things, I sure do feel a lot better. And then trying to get quality sleep. I don't get a lot of sleep, but when I do sleep, just making sure that it's quality. So I think that's different for every person, but those are the things that seem to work for me.
Yeah, and great suggestions for people who are, maybe starting a business, or are in the heap of being just really stressed out. Just getting one of those and a different approach might be helpful.
Oh, and I'll say also getting adjusted regularly.
Yes.
I have to get a chiropractic adjustment at least once a week. That helps exponentially manage stress. And for our listeners, I've just learned in almost a decade, you're never not going to be stressed. You're always going to be stressed. So just accept that and then learn to deal with it, and just know that it's a part of running and owning your business. And I think if you realize that and you come to terms with that, it makes dealing with the stress a whole lot easier.
Yeah, it almost kind of takes away the power of the stress, which I feel like is very helpful. So now moving on to, in those scenarios where stress has just been consistent and you're trucking along, and especially in the healthcare world where everyone, you got to keep going, you got to keep treating these patients. What do you do in the scenarios of burnout? How do you handle burnout for yourself? How do you handle burnout for your staff? What does that look like for you in your clinic?
So and it's my opinion, if you are a practice owner and you're a practicing chiropractor, you don't get the luxury of burnout.
Right.
Like, it doesn't exist. Like, get up, get to work, and start helping your patients. And to me, when you don't feel good, you need, and this helps me. When I don't feel good, I need to look good. That means I need to get up, make sure I'm showered and clean for work, that my clothes are not wrinkled, that I look good, that it helps me feel good.
Right.
And you just show up and you just start. I think the best way to deal with stress and anxiety and burnout is to work on your problem. So if you just get to work and you start working on those things that bother you, I think that sort of helps with stress and anxiety and managing those things. And just remember, like, you can go through seasons where you are tired or you don't 100%, like, you're not as excited about going to work as you typically were. But remember, you chose to be a business owner. You chose to do this. And if you can't get through these periods of, like, where you feel like you might be burned out, like if you go a long extended period of this, 6 months to a year, then I think you really need to question, is this the right thing for me? Do I have other things that are more important to me? Is raising a child or spending time with my child more important to me? Is spending time with my family more important to me? And if it is, then I don't think that you should totally be a business owner if you want to be successful. And to me, successful is survival. It's being able to survive in our economic climate for decades. And so if you're in this for the long haul, just burnout's not really an option. You deal with your stress and anxiety and you deal with the things that are causing the burnout, but then you just keep moving on. Now, on the flip side, I'll say this. You want to watch your team because they will experience burnout. And so they did not sign up for owning a business. They signed up to be a W-2 employee in your office. And they came, to come to work. Hopefully you pick some people that are passionate about chiropractic care, but ultimately they're trading time for money, and they're here to support their families. And you've got to know that. And so I've got some, especially I see this with doctors, associate doctors, where they'll go above and beyond and they want to help, which I love that. And all of our doctors here, my goodness, they will help me with anything that I ask them. I could not ask for better chiropractors. But I do want them to these are the people that I deal with. They don't take time off. They don't, take time for themselves. And I want them to do that because, they are such good employees. They didn't sign up to have the stress of being a business owner, and I want to make sure that they take that time. And I'll say that for our doctors. Now, for the rest of our team, it's almost sort of opposite, where we're calling out for, we're sick or we need a mental health day or whatever. So, that's going to be most of your employees. But when you get your really good ones, and hopefully they're your doctors, where they're at work, even if they don't feel good, they push through. You do want to make sure, you want to be careful and make sure that they're not getting close to burnout, because those are the people that they'll they do have a choice to be burned out or not. And you don't want them to get to the point where they're so burned out that they don't want to be a chiropractor anymore, or, that they don't want to work at your clinic anymore. So you do want to watch that, especially with your A-player employees, some of your best, very, very driven staff members, because they didn't sign up for your job and they do have a choice. They do have the luxury of being burnt out, and you've got to realize that.
Absolutely. So with this burnout, I mean, you're saying it yourself, you can't really have that opportunity. As a business owner, you don't get that luxury. So in those scenarios, how do you work through motivating yourself to, get back up again, do it the next day? Like you said, it ebbs and flows. There's sometimes that it's all right to come in every once in a while and not feel that way, but how do you, motivate yourself to do so?
Sure. I think that goes back, Kelsey, to the first question that you asked me, about what are the biggest challenges and responsibilities of being a business owner. And so just for me, it's remembering I'm responsible for keeping this business open. I'm responsible for making sure that we are having patients come in the door, that we are collecting payments so that I can pay my employees, so in turn they can take care of themselves and their families. And so that sort of helps me. It's like I have people that are relying on me and are trusting me. And same thing with our patients too. Like a lot of times doctors, if you do feel down or you feel like you're about to go through a period of burnout, if you go maybe and read your testimonials or Google reviews, that'll help you remember, like, man, I really have helped this patient, or chiropractic care really has changed their quality of life. Like, those are some things that sort of help me. But sometimes I have to just tell myself, get up, get going, and get moving, and be an example to the rest of your team, because I mean, you'll have staff members that don't feel good, or they're stressed out or whatever. Just be an example to them that you can push through, you can work through these things. You can't run from stress and anxiety. You've got to learn to deal with it. And I think that as a leader, realizing that your staff members are watching you and they are looking at you, I think that helps me keep moving forward and pushing through times where I might not feel like being a business owner.
Right. So last question, and I'm kind of very excited for this question. What would you say what advice would you give to chiropractors who are considering taking, that step of opening their own practice and preparing them for managing a business and also running a clinic and being a chiropractor all in one?
Sure. So I think that if you have the entrepreneurial bug, that you should follow your passion. But not everybody, there are so few people that are actually cut out to be business owners and to be entrepreneurs. And so in my opinion, a lot of business owners have no business being a business owner. But if you are thinking about opening a chiropractic clinic, just know that in my opinion, to be successful, especially in the beginning, I'm not saying that this goes on after 15, 20 years, but you are a slave to your practice. You need to be obsessed with owning a business. And what I mean obsessed is being obsessed with being the best that you can, knowing your stats, being the best employer that you can be. But it's 24/7, and just know, like, this is a long end game. Successful clinics are clinics that survive, and you want to have a clinic that's going to survive for decades. And so that you can help a lot of people in your community as they grow in their lives. And just know, like, it's the hardest thing you'll ever do. And I just really think people you've got to want to open up a business. I think sometimes people think, oh, I'll just open up this business and I can treat the way I want to, and I can have the hours that I want to. And that's not like, if you want to be successful,
right?
Like, you need to be open for patients. You need to make sure that you're here for people when they get off of work, that they can come see you in your clinic. You may think, oh, I would love to not have a boss. Well, you have a boss when you are a business owner. The bank is your boss.
Yeah.
The IRS is your boss. I mean, you've got other people they're sort of telling you what to do, which is fine. Of course, you can make a lot more decisions than being a W-2 employee, but it is, to me, it's the hardest thing you'll ever do, and it does get easier, but it's not going to get easier in the first 5 or 10 years. You've got to push through and make it through. And do you have the sacrifice, and do you have the what it takes to make it through the first decade of your practice? And then you can start to scale and grow, and you can delegate a whole lot more.
Absolutely, and thank you for kind of giving us a good rundown on that. And let's wrap it up. Do you have anything else you'd like to just add?
Yes, with that last question too, when you're going to if you're deciding to open up your own practice, just realize too, it takes a lot of capital to open up a a successful chiropractic clinic
Mm-hmm.
in 2024. I don't suggest starting with $50,000 or $100,000 renting a room and starting a clinic. Like, you want to start out, you want to give yourself, you want to create the space that you want patients to enjoy, and that's going to take capital. And just know that when you do start your own clinic, you're probably not going to get paid for even a couple years. And you just got to know that. Like, you've got to pay your staff before you pay yourself. And I don't think sometimes people save enough or realize that they're really going to have to make some sacrifices. But I mean, I love business ownership, and there's so much you can do, and there's no ceiling. You can always continue to grow. So if you're going to sacrifice for a couple years, I mean, what's that matter down the road if
Right.
you're going to be successful, and you're going to be better off than you were when you first started. But you just have to get through that period, and sometimes it's longer than people think.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Duncan, on talking on the weight of ownership, because I feel like it's a very common subject that nobody talks about. So it's really impactful to hear your responses on those things. All right. Well, we are going to wrap this up. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time.
Yes. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Today was some real talk.
Yes.
And that's a wrap on another episode of $1 Million Chiro, the podcast. I hope you enjoyed diving into the world where chiropractic care meets successful practice management. I'm Dr. Mary Frances Duncan, your host. Remember, you can find all of our previous episodes, online courses, and details about personalized coaching with me on our website, milliondollarchiro.co. Stay connected with us on social media at $1 Million Chiro to stay updated on all things chiropractic and chiropractic practice management. If you found value in today's episode, don't forget to subscribe to $1 Million Chiro, the podcast, on your favorite streaming platforms, and leave us a 5-star review. Reviews help us grow and continue delivering content tailored to your interest. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time, keep aligning your goals with your actions, and let's continue building $1 Million chiropractic clinics together. This is Dr. Duncan, and I'm signing off.